Empire.
Welcome to the latest version of the All's Caps podcast. I'm Steve Wino, the Capitals and NHL reporter for the Associated Press, joined by former Capitals defenseman Karl Alzner. We're going to talk some Ovi and Kuzy today. We're joined by Alan May, Capital from NBC Sports Washington, telling an incredible John Tortorella fight story and kind of how he became a better player as a result of it. And we'll do some more Cap stuff. We'll go around the league, and I really want to get into Karl's fighting history. How was I think are you 6-0 in your career? 6-0 fighting, Karl?
Yeah, let's go with 6-0. It was funny. I was just in Atlantic City this last week, and I thought I was gonna have to add another fight to my fight resume. I'm just going to a Michael Bublé concert, and I've never been down to Atlantic City before. It was pretty interesting, but I luckily did not have to test my fighting skills that are not all that sharp. So I'm happy about that. What about you? You got any under your belt?
And Brian Boucher and Jody Shelley asked me this. I said, yeah, as a kid I did that. Everybody does that, and I probably fought more with my brother than anybody else. But yes, there were schoolyard situations.
There always is. Yeah, no, it's weird. The guys that fight, they, like just talking to Alan about it, they seem to, I don't know that they all enjoy it, but they just seem to get more calm when they're in those situations. Whenever I've got into any sort of fight, or even now, like if you just feel like something like that could be happening, it's insane how much adrenaline goes through your body and how you get the little the adrenaline shakes almost. And it's weird that I played with one guy, we called him Sugar Sugden down in Hershey, and he said he was so nervous whenever the puck came near him, but whenever he got to drop his gloves, all those nerves went away and he could relax. And I'm just like, wow, you are the complete opposite of most people. It's insane.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's talk Caps. Let's talk Evgeny Kuznetsov, because this guy is on fire with 6 points in the first 3 games and looking like the Kuzy from the 2018 playoff run. You've been watching. What are your thoughts been on kind of the new or the reborn Evgeny Kuznetsov?
Yeah, I mean, it was the question before the season. Which way is this going to go? Is it going to, after everything that went on last year, is it going to continue to go that direction? And, and we lose one of the best players in the league when they're going, or is he going to have a chip on his shoulder and prove to everybody that, last year was last year and he's back, and everything seems to be working perfectly. I mean, and with Nick not being in the lineup, he gets to be more of the guy and relied on a little bit heavier to be the guy, to score the goals, to get the assists. And what I think is awesome is you can see just how much fun he seems to be having out there. He's enjoying playing hockey. He's cackling. That cackle he had in his interview was classic Kuzy right there. And he just seems to be really enjoying the game. Like I remember that year when they won the cup and we played them in Montreal, there was one time we were skating up the ice, and like most guys, when they go to, like if someone's coming to check them and they go to shield the puck or protect the puck, they really lean into it and put their arm out or something like that. He just regular skating stride and just kicks a stick away, lift his leg up and kicks the stick away. And I remember thinking, like, what is he doing right now? Like nobody would do that. That's something you would do like in practice, just messing around with your buddies. And when he's playing good and when he's feeling good, he just goes out there and has fun. And that's a dangerous Evgeny Kuznetsov. And we see that right now. So, I mean, I wish I would have drafted him in my fantasy. I should have known that this was going to happen. It was a big mistake by me. And it's great for the Caps, though.
It is, and listeners of this podcast heard me say I'm drinking the Kool-Aid on Evgeny Kuznetsov having a big year. There was something about his mindset going into the year that whatever he is kind of his focus right now, it's working. And you look, he made Cale Makar, a Norris Trophy finalist defenseman, look silly the other night. And did he ever do that when you were playing with him? Like, was there ever a moment or against him at all where he did something ridiculous where it was like, I can't believe he did this to that guy?
Oh, I mean, there was lots of times on the ice where he did that, but it was always in practice too. We would practice power play, penalty kill, and we would always just like whichever D we're going against him. It was usually whether it was me and Orpy or whoever was on the PK and they were doing breakouts. We would always just say, oh man, we gotta try and defend Kuzy here because he can he just reads off people so well, and his edges are insane. Like, there is so few players in the league that can skate like him, and if you watch him closely, like, I wish that we could get a number on it, like how many strides he takes in a game versus most other players, because he can glide so good. And usually when you say a guy's gliding, it's not always a good thing. In his case, it's a great thing, because that's the way he moves out there. But yeah, he would come down full speed on us on power play, penalty kill, breakouts, and it was, if you decide to go take away the left side, he'd go the right side. It didn't matter. You couldn't guess which way he was going, because he was so good at just shifting and reading off the player. It really is. It's crazy, and that's what you need, though. Like, when your top line can absolutely destroy another team's top line, like that game, Colorado's top three players were each -5.
That is absurd.
Insane.
Yes.
I don't know that I've seen something like that, but that's what you need. You want your top line to be able to just go out there and beat up the other team's top line, and if they can do that, then that's a big win. And then if the second line can play great as well, then you're usually going to be ahead.
Right. And the other night with Nick Dowd sitting next to him, Kuzy was kind of joking about, well, I really only need to score once every 4 games or so, whatever. I'm good for 10 games now. And I know it was a joke, but was there anything frustrating about playing with Evgeny Kuznetsov, about kind of that there were days where he didn't want to care? You know what I mean? Like, he even said it to us. He said, if I cared every 82 games, I'd be the MVP of this league. It's just not in his makeup. Is that frustrating as a teammate?
Yeah, I mean, it happens, though. Like, there's so many players that have come through the league or just been on the cusp of the league that have had insane amounts of skill, like just as good a skill as the top players. It's the drive that puts a lot of them over. And another really good example of that is Alex Semin. Like, Alex Semin had just ridiculous talent, unbelievable shot, so athletic. He would, like, if we would play soccer before the game, he was the best soccer player. You get on the ice, he's the best player on the ice. He's just one of those guys. And you always just wanted a little bit more from him. And to me, Kuzy is the type of guy that, he wants the game to be fun. And when it turns into more of a job and less fun, then you start to back off a little bit. And I get that. I mean, I totally understand what he's saying, because I've had it happen where, when I was playing in Washington, everything was fun. Had a blast playing. Every day at the rink was great, and play excelled. And then when I went to Montreal, it turned into more of a job and less fun, and play declined. And you see it with a lot of guys, and you just hope that they can find a way to get through that. And some guys need to pace themselves, and Kuzy clearly is one of those guys that wants to pace himself a little bit. And maybe don't score once every 4 games. Like, let's go once every 3, once every 2, or at least set other guys up, which I think he'll do. And just hope that when Nick does come back, that it doesn't, he doesn't feel that he needs to take a step back because Nick is back. Continue to be that guy, and then hopefully we can roll that right into a playoff.
Yeah, and I actually do think his drive is there this year. Like, you could see it from the first day of training camp that Kuznetsov was in it, and that's why, with all that talent, if he harnesses it like that, he's going to be an all-star. And I know right now he's suspended and can't go to the Olympics, but if Russia can get him to the Olympics, and you got a Kucherov and you got an Ovechkin, that's going to be a heck of a team in Beijing.
Yeah, I mean, there's so much skill in the Russian team. There always is, and it's it's just whether or not everybody can put it together at the same time, and you can have it's kind of one of the things. There's so many good top line Russian players. There isn't as many third and fourth line Russian players, and to try and get them to shoulder that load on the third line and the fourth line and grind it out a little bit more has kind of been part of the issue. But I guess if they can just come at you wave on wave, then maybe they're going to be fine. But I think this is great right now what Kuzy's doing, because it's going to rub off on some of the young guys too. Just see how hard he is working, how much fun he is having while continuing to chip in and play the game the right way, and that's going to be great for all these young guys that are watching it right now.
And speaking of the young guys, Connor Mcmichael gets his season debut against Colorado. What do you make of Lapierre and Mcmichael? These guys are the future. What are your early thoughts on these guys?
Yeah, they are the future, and I think it's kind of what we all expected. And listen to Peter Laviolette's interviews after. I think he gets, it seems clear to me, at least, that what you're getting between the two. With Mcmichael, you got a guy that is a little bit more mature. Plays the game at a little bit more responsible. You can count on him to make less mistakes. Maybe
he's a year older too. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. You're going to get that, and it takes some guys a little bit longer than others. But they always talk about which player is more NHL ready, and it maybe seems like Mcmichael is more NHL ready with that extra year. I was trying to think of a nickname for Lapierre. I was going to call him MLP, just to make it a little bit easier on myself.
How about Jimmy? Like his name is Hendricks. The fact that his nickname is not Jimmy is absurd.
That's a good one. Let's go with Jimmy from now on. So Jimmy, it would benefit him probably to play another year where he's the guy, and he can just get that much more development in his game, and especially when you get a taste of the NHL, and then you go back to junior, and I think most guys hold themselves to a higher standard at that point. They know what these guys, they know what an Ovi's doing, what a Backy's doing, a Carlson's doing to play in the NHL. Let's go and bring that back to my team and really work on that. But at the same time, like we had talked about earlier, you don't know which way the team's going to want to go. But I mean, at this point, it seems like Mcmichael is the guy that can fill the role kind of up and down the lineup, depending on what you want. So it's tough to say. I mean, you may have watched the game a little bit closer than I did with all my kids running around. But it's to me, I feel like that's the direction it's going to go.
Yeah, and that Colorado game was probably the best full team performance of the season from these guys, and it included another Alex Ovechkin goal. He's one step closer, and I think that makes up for the goal that you stole from him many years ago. That 150-foot empty netter he scored the other night.
He's actually pretty good at those. And if he would have buried more of these empty netters that he's had, though, he would already be up in the 800s. That guy is. There's been some games where we were laughing so hard after because he had like 2 or 3 shots at it and couldn't bury it. And it's I like that he still gets to go out there and have a chance at those. A lot of times teams will put out their third and fourth line and just try and grind it out, and that's the way it goes. But it's fun that he goes out there and takes a shot at it. And I think he's grown more and more every year, and understanding that it's not this isn't go out on the ice and just score a goal time. It's go out on the ice and defend goals against, and if you get a chance, then put it in. And that's nice. It's nice to have those guys kind of pat him a little bit. I always love an empty net goal. I mean, I got, I think, 1 or 2 in my career, and they feel just as good as a regular goal.
Do they really? Like, I wonder if it, like, I don't know, it doesn't cheapen it, because I'm sure Gretzky's got a bunch of empty net goals too, but it's not the same, right?
It's not the same for sure. It's harder to get a goal 5-on-5, but I guess let me rephrase that. As a guy who scores 4 goals a year, 5 goals a year, they feel the same. You're happy either way. Doesn't matter. You can take them because they don't ask you how, they ask you how many. Exactly, yeah. And I would sometimes like to explain how these empty net goals go in, because it's hilarious a lot of times. But you know what? The nice thing is, if you can score during the game, you can ride that wave of excitement and adrenaline from scoring a goal. That's like, I always felt that if you get an assist or a goal in the first period, the rest of your game is just set up. You feel unbeatable. But it doesn't matter. If you get on the sheet, you're happy and turn to the next game. We're riding the adrenaline now because we have Alan May coming up next. We're going to talk to Alan. He's telling stories, his game day routine, and then later on we're going to chat about what's coming up for the Capitals, the next little stretch, and how Karl, as an NHL player, dealt with stretches like the Capitals are dealing with now. This is the All Caps podcast with Steve Wino and Karl Alzner. We'll be right back. Welcome back to the All Caps podcast. I'm AP hockey writer Steve Wino with former Capitals defenseman Karl Alzner, and we are now joined by NBC Sports Washington Capitals analyst and fellow alum Alan May. Alan, well, thanks for joining us.
Hey, thanks for having me, guys. Good to be with you.
So we hear you have a pregame routine, even not as a player. What is your superstition on a game day as a broadcaster?
I'm OCD psychotic. So I swear to God, it's just like, I even ramp up to start the season. I start doing 2-a-days to get ready and, to get my fitness in order. And, you always want to look good in camera and all those things. But so I usually I have 2 training days. So today was actually fell on a training day where I actually go to the gym and get my workout in. And then typically I hit Whole Foods, and then I get back right about now. I get back and I do my game sheet. I do my notes for the game. And not that I need to do it. I just like the habit and the ritual of doing it and having something on me in paper and making sure if I have a number off the top of my head, I use it. And then I go through the routine. I eat a meal just like I got a game tonight, and I don't eat after a certain time. So there's no food goes in the body after 3 p.m. on game day. And then it's get ready, shave every game day, and then get my suit ready, get it on. And as soon as just like when I was playing, as soon as my tie is tightened, it's game on and I'm ready to go. So I get to the studio usually before everyone else and set up my stuff, and then I got veg time, so I can walk around and harass people, do whatever I want. And believe me, last year was lonely because we weren't around people, and we had the Gestapo walking around the floor to make sure we weren't in the same room. So it drove me absolutely crazy. And then when we were finally allowed to watch games together, I was like the happiest guy there was, because it's good to be able to, when you're swearing at the TV, it's good to have people there with you. And then my co-host or host, Alexis Shaw, learned how much English I speak, and what really makes me mad, and one of my favorite words, and how I use it when I'm mad. And she's seen me slam the table, and I've gotten away from throwing my cell phone, but that's typically like my game day routine. And I used to always love to have a beer after the show, but we weren't allowed to do that last year because everything was lights out by the time the shows were over. And, it was just a different time. So when we finally get Karl in the studio, Karl's going to have to be ready to go for a beer after work. So
is that going to be a problem, Karl?
Yeah.
He's not going to be an official. He's not going to be an official broadcaster if he doesn't do that.
Exactly. I'm hearing that they've actually reinforced that table in the room where we watch the games, just because you're gonna smash through it so many times like a wrestler. So
I do the double slap when I'm pissed off. So it's usually with the mother. So I don't know if how PG you guys are, but it's loud. And then if it's the same player doing it over, he gets it. So it's you know what? I even do that when I'm at home watching games. I get pissed off when guys do the wrong things. So I can no longer watch games like a super fan. And now everything's done with an analytical eye.
Yeah. Well, I know. How about this? This was happened last year when I was doing all those games from Zoom in my house. And so I don't know why, but it's like one of those things, like Alan said, you get into a routine where you have your same meal, same time, this and that. And so whenever I was watching a game, I'd have to either go on the treadmill or go on the bike. And so I'm watching the game on my laptop, because that's how we were recording, and then just went straight to the feed. And so as soon as I'm finished, I peel off my suit, put on my workout clothes, and I start riding the bike. And then I get a text from one of the guys saying, "What are you doing right now?" Because they could see me kind of like moving around and stuff. And then Alan had to let me know, just be aware, everybody's always watching. And what the funny thing is I didn't really realize it. I thought I was off the camera, so I was barely out of picture, getting butt naked, putting on my workout clothes, and then finally put them on, and then brought it over to the bike. So I almost had my first slip up in like my second game ever doing it. So this is
you almost pulled a tube in. You almost pulled a tube in.
It's a lesson for everybody. Turn your camera off on Zoom meetings as much as physically possible.
I even put tape over your camera when you're not.
Yeah.
When you're not prepared. My old buddy used to be an NBC cameraman. Used to hack laptops and spy on his then girlfriend, now wife, to make sure that there were no other visitors while he was out of the house. So everything's possible with those cameras. It's shocking.
Yes, we are doing this on Zoom audio only for everybody who's wondering about that too. As Alan prepares for another Capitals game day. We were told, Alan, to ask you about fighting John Tortorella, and I guess we could do this again if you're in an ESPN studio anytime soon. But what was that like?
Oh, yeah. So John, my first year of pro, I played in a league that no one heard of, and now everyone knows what the Coast is. And it started out, I had no idea how many Carolinas and how many Virginias there were back then. U.S. geography wasn't my thing. You never had to know it growing up, just like Americans don't have to know Canadian geography. So I got sent down to played on the team in Winston-Salem, North Carolina, and it was just so, every day was bizarre, and it was just so different from where I came from in Canada, in Western Canada. And I got down there, and the fans loved me. I literally got, after the first few games, they would chant my name all game. I'd get a standing O every single shift I'd go on the ice because of there was no holding up guys on the body checks. And really, our coach was horseshit. He was awful. And I just ran around. I just ran around trying to get as many hits, many shots, many goals, and was ready to fight at the drop of a dime. Wasn't that big, but there was two brothers on that Torts had signed, and I almost got in a fight with these two guys, with my buddy Mark Kachowski, who played in the NHL as well. We were both overage juniors in the Western Hockey League, and we got a tryout. You know, we thought it was a big deal. We're getting this tryout in Flint, Michigan, in the old IHL, which was the number two minor league at the time, and it was like a distance behind the American League. But you know, he and I go there, and we're flying from Edmonton. We're in Detroit, and we got to get on a puddle jumper to fly to Flint. And these two brothers got black eyes, and I don't know what training camp they came from, but they knew we were going to Flint, and like they were mouthing us off in the airport. They wanted to fight in the airport. It was like it was totally effed up. And so, and I'll fast forward. First game we played, that these leagues don't waste time. They don't waste exhibition games. They get right at it, and you're playing games. So first regular season game I play, one of these guys challenges me, and I beat the holy living hell out of him. And then my roommate, he knocks out the other guy with the left jab, opening night, but then hurts his hand the rest of the season. So I don't have a tag team partner. They bring out other guys here and there, but so this league it's your goal scoring or you're hitting and fighting, and it was kind of awesome. It's probably some of the most entertaining hockey you could ever watch, and so it goes on throughout the season. I think the final numbers with the two brothers, I fought in 42 games. I fought total season I played. It was 15 fights, one guy and 6 the other, and 21-0. But you know, and it was, there was no defense back then. It was just like everything was like a wild uppercut, and you have to learn after a while. You can't be an animal every single fight, so you don't want to have bad mitts. And I wanted to score goals too, so these two guys tried holding out on their team, and they used to come up. Torch would put them out, and you know, it's, in fairness to him, hockey was a lot different. But they would try to go out when I was on the ice, and my team would go, "Don't fight." I was one of the best players. You know, obviously I was the best player in the league because I was the one guy that played in the NHL. So you know, they would literally put their sticks under my fucking chin and wanna like that, and I just couldn't take it. Like they literally left, like my teammates would beg me not to fight, and I could only take such, and then I lose. I used to have a really bad temper. It had to, like, there was a snap. I had to learn to control the snap as well. So these two guys around Christmas, and I think it was a January 30th game. They had held on a team. They wanted bucks, and you know, you didn't make a lot. I made $250 a week in that league, $35 a win.
What year was this?
And this was back in the 86 or so. Okay. And yeah, so when I was 10 years old. So anyways, this league, these guys would do that. So you're playing, like I was delusional enough to think I'm going to still play in the NHL. Like I never had a doubt I wasn't going to. And I was just going to plow through this league, and I just knew I had to gain some weight and, you know, just continue to work. But these two guys were kind of in my way. Well, anyways, I wasn't there to try to get money. I wanted to get money in the American League and then the NHL. So these two guys, they go on strike more or less, and they're holding Torts, and, you know, Torts, you know, you're a one-man hockey operation at that level at that time. And it's ridiculous. If you're going to cheat, you're going to, you know, kill your franchise. You know, you're going to run out of money because it's not like you're charging a lot for tickets. So anyways, these guys aren't playing. But the night before in this game, there was a defenseman on the team. I cannot remember his name for the life of me, but he speared me right between the legs and dropped me and went to the bench. And I went into a rage. When I got up, and I even tried to go in their dressing room between periods. Like I used to lose my mind. So
you and John have some things in common.
Oh, well, I'll tell you what, I ended up playing for this guy. I absolutely love him. He is one of the greatest humans I've ever met in my life. He's just an absolute, unbelievable, good human being. And he just hates you types. So
I actually like John. John and I are more dog people than human people. So I think that's how we get along.
Yeah, exactly. People don't realize he is one of the greatest, one of the biggest, best hearts in the world. But he's got a lot of heart, and he's a tiny guy. So he's about your size, Wino. So I know. Anyways, we play in this game, and I am just pissed at this guy. I can't get him, and they don't put him on the ice again. And the cops got to haul me back to my dressing room, and it's just a mess. These games were so out of control with what was going on all the time. It was great TV. It would have been great TV and great movies.
I wish there was video of this.
Yeah, so there is video, and one person has it, and so Torts, we end up with the next night, our owner says, hey, we could use a bench clearing brawl to bring more people in here. And so we're chomping a bit. We have a really bad referee, like he had to be paid off. It was so corrupt, the game we're in. And I don't say that lightly, because the penalties were like 21-1. One of my teammates got tripped, like feet up. The guy just had his skates hooked up all the way to his shoulders. He goes ass over tea kettle, hits his face on the ice and everything. As he goes down, a stick goes out to the left of his body. He's a right-handed guy, top hand of the stick. The guy who tripped him steps on the stick, and our guy gets the tripping penalty. Oh, and he goes to the ref, and he just snaps, and the ref calls him a name. He calls him a French name and another name. And this guy also used to fight on ESPN in full contact. It was called the ESPN PKA. It was like full contact kickboxing with like boxing gloves. And he used to fight on there, and he was a monster. He skated so slow, he looked like he was going backwards. He looked like a chuck wagon on those old cowboy western sound stages, but he was massive, and he lost his mind. Well, that all of a sudden, that lights it up. He starts chasing the referee around. Next thing you know, the bench is empty, and I go after the guy that got me the night before, and I just crush him. And I crush the goalie, and then another guy, I would have to get the game sheet, but the man who has it passed away. So I don't know if his wife will get it for me for the amount of penalty minutes I got for this one. Anyways, he, as I'm going back by the bench, chasing guys around, because believe me, it's just chaos. And Torts with his Jerry curl, and he used to always have that sweater. He wore a sweater and a tie, like a la Robbie Ftorek. And he's mouthing me off. He can barely see over the boards. The boards are kind of tall. And he's got the door open. And I'm like, fuck this guy. He's always sending guys out to fight. So I jump inside the bench and I push him in the corner and just start just like throwing punches. And next thing my roommate jumps over the glass, and we're going at it in the penalty box. But so Torts didn't stand a chance anyways. But at the end of the season, his team was really good. And Torts has won at every level he's been at. So at the end of the season, he's like, out back in the old Coliseums were very different from, what the guys are in now. All these minor league arenas are pretty nice. And so he comes in, he's like, where's May? And I figured he wants to fight in dress shoes, in street clothes, and maybe have a better chance at it. And he comes up to me. Am I allowed to swear on your podcast?
We're gonna find out.
Okay. Anyway, so he goes, what the fuck were you doing playing left wing? He goes, if you're going to play in the NHL, you got to play a right wing or center. He goes, quit playing defense too. Then he goes, you got to play center, right wing. So it's kind of funny. Like, he goes, you're a player, and quit fucking fighting all the time. I said, well, you're always sending your guys up. So anyways, he's a good dude. Like, he really cares about the game and everything about it at every level. So it's funny, that summer I'm in Boston skating early, and I'm getting ready to sign with the Bruins. And I had 3 big contract offers from getting called up a few weeks later to the American League. And anyways, I'm at training camp, and Mike Milbury, who is going to be he's the general manager coach for the first year in the Maine Mariners, and that's the Bruins. First time they've had a full affiliate in years. So we're going into Portland, Maine, and I see him talking to Tortorella, and they're looking over at me nonstop, and I'm looking over to see why they're looking at me in the Boston Bruins practice, twin practice rinks, and they keep looking over at me. And then Milbury's driving me back home. He's driving me back to the hotel, and he goes, hey, one of the things I was thinking this year, he goes, you're a little off your rocker. He goes, I was thinking we probably got to get you a sports psychologist because you kind of got an anger issue. You're going to end up hurting someone and I was like, you know what? I go, fuck you and fuck John Tortorella. I don't got it. So I just play right into it. I go, pull a car over. I don't even want to be with you. And he goes, see what I mean? And I go, shut up and pull over. I didn't want to be in the car with you. so he won. So I end up having a guy to go talk to, but all we did was go to happy hour and laugh and tell stories, and maybe taught me the art of telling a good story. So anyways, I love those two guys. A lot of people don't like those guys because they don't know them. Those of us that do absolutely love them. And I go to bat for Torts any day. And I was hoping he was going to be the Caps coach so many different times over the years that I've been covering them.
Look, he'll get another job, Alan, right? Like, he's going to get another NHL job.
If he wants it. Like, he doesn't, he's got money. You know, he wants to, you know, he saves horses. He saves dogs. He's like, he's just an unbelievable guy. He supports the military and veterans and anyone he can help. And you know, he's a very regimented. He, you know, loves the country, loves people. He would help anyone. So if he wants to coach, you know, most people have to get to know how incredible he is. The thing with the press isn't really him. He's just got a design, maybe from playing with the, you know, in New York and having to deal with, you know, what goes on in the media there, maybe. And I just can't see him coaching a Canadian team because of all the garbage that happens up there, and, you know, the gossip and innuendo daily. It's just, I just don't see him having the temperament to deal with that.
Karl, you got a taste of playing in Montreal, and we're going to get into your fighting history, I think, in the next segment, because I want to talk about that. But what was it like different playing in Montreal, Karl, than playing in Washington with all that attention?
Well, Alan's right. I mean, there's just so much going on with the media. Like, that's the only sport there, right? So they spend so much time breaking down every little aspect of the team, every aspect of the player. It's just nonstop. And, you know, if things are going great, then, you know, there's less things to harp on and there's more good to talk about. And when they're not, then, you know, the opposite. So you get to see it, but it's hard on guys. Like, guys just want to focus on playing, but there's so many different avenues that can get into your head, whether it's, you know, the classic newspaper or getting into Twitter or Instagram, whatever the heck it is. It's just all over the place. So it messes with guys as badly as they want to stay away from it. You still have your friends and your family that are reading it, and then next thing you know, you get a text saying, oh, I hate what they said about you on so-and-so or on this paper. And then you can't help but start thinking about it a little bit in the back of your head. So that's why, one of the reasons why it's so hard to get guys to go to these places in free agency, because they don't want to deal with that kind of thing. So it's just, they're just already against, you know, higher odds to you know, lose out to a team like, say, the Caps, or, you know, a place where a guy can be a little bit more anonymous, and it's just going to make it tougher and tougher. But at the same time, the Canadian teams are what really helps drive the league, and when the dollar's not so bad, I guess, drive some of the revenue too.
Sure.
So it's unfortunate, but yeah, I mean, it definitely helps them.
Hey, just to reiterate that, like, when was the last time a Canadian team won a Stanley Cup?
1993.
When did the internet start?
Yeah, I was gonna say, yeah.
I just look. I've always felt this, and you know, there used to be message boards on websites before we had, you know, social media like, you know, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, what you know, all the other garbage that's been out there. But when I look at it in Canada, it's ruthless, and you know, I've always felt that, you know, the great thing, guys come down, and I always thought the Canadian guys that started on the Canadian teams, they were kind of cocky when they came down to the, you know, because they're used to everyone recognizing them, and, you know, whether grocery store, drugstore, gas station, walking down the street, no matter where you're at, it felt like everyone knew who those players were. Well, they come down, I play in DC or Dallas, or, you know, and people don't recognize you. Like Joe Nieuwendyk could walk around. He's a superstar in Calgary. He's playing in Dallas. He can walk around. Mike Modano, when I was playing with him, he could walk around knowing you were able to separate and live your lives. And, you know, the same thing in Tampa. You know, these guys can walk around and enjoy their lives, and it's not a 24/7. You know, you don't have to keep your guard up all the time. You're not being, you know, there's a lot of insults. I've been with guys and they've been yelled at, and it's just everyone. You know, you're with the Canadian. You know, I remember the first time I was in Montreal with the Caps after a game. I was hanging out with Chelios and Russ Courtnall, and you know, Chelly's buddies. His brother was one of my best friends. Both of the Courtnalls were two of my best friends in hockey, and these guys had people are looking nonstop. don't necessarily recognize our guys, but they recognize Shelly. Like, so it's nonstop. Everyone's watching at the corner of the eyes. Every time they lift their drink up, people are looking. And thank God they didn't have cell phones back then, smartphones like they do now, because I used to be out so much it'd have been nonstop snapping. But I just think it's emotionally wears players out mentally, and
sure.
You're seeing it feels like there's more players up there that are cracking. Because and then the assaults on, like, I honestly don't think any player should have a Twitter or Instagram that they're looking at, or they shouldn't be reading about themselves, because it's
Tom
just
Wilson's
too hard
talked about
fight.
this, Alan. Tom Wilson's talked about not going on. Yeah,
it's too hard to fight back. So people get pissed off at me. I'll say something on television, and then all of a sudden I just block them. I don't have time to argue some nameless, faceless loser. And it's kind of hilarious. And just I remember, go back to Joel Ward when he scored that goal in Boston years ago. All those losers, and it's just a sickening place, because it's too easy to be hateful. And you see people, and then you see them in their real life, and they don't act like that. But when you look at their Twitter account, and you're like, holy, what the hell's wrong with this guy? Yeah. So I think it makes it tough. I think that adds to playing in Canada, the stress of trying to win a Stanley Cup. I just think it's really hard if you're reading about yourself and following. We all like to read the good stuff about ourselves. Back in the old days of print, we'd probably even cut it out and mail it to grandma. But nowadays, it's just there's too many assaults.
Do you read stuff, Karl? Or when you played?
That happened during the lockout. So during the lockout, I was back in Calgary, and I was on Twitter then. It was still relatively new, I guess, and I would get so many messages just directed at us, like, being babies, being selfish, wanting all this money, this and that. And, they only get to, they only understand what they've read. And I'm the one that's in the meetings and talking to the guys about it. So, occasionally I would send like a message to one of these guys, like a private message, and just say, explain something in like 5-6 lines. And next thing you know, the next message I'd get was, "Oh, I'm so sorry. I really respect you for responding. I just want to watch hockey again," And I did it like 3 or 4 times, and I think to myself, like, what am I doing? Like, I gotta just settle down. So I deleted my Twitter for a couple years after that, because I just didn't want to deal with it. But that time was especially tough. Like during that lockout, this is actually really funny. I was skating, and I was just wanting to skate on one of the outdoor rinks, one of the really great outdoor rinks close to downtown Calgary. So I drove out there and was just wheeling around, and then a group of people were coming to play some pond hockey, and they were one short. So they asked me if I wanted to play with them. So I was wheeling around a little bit, and then they had a break to go warm up by the fire. It was like -20, and I could hear them talking about the lockout and how selfish the players were and this and that. And so I didn't ever want to go over there, because I didn't want them to ask me any questions about it. I didn't know if they even knew that I played hockey. So finally the game finishes, and one of the guys comes up to me. He goes, "Yes, you must have played some hockey back in the day or something like that. What'd you play, like AAA midget?" And I'm like, holy smokes, am I that bad right now that I'm only getting AAA midget? The guy doesn't even think that they've made it past there. And so I could only imagine what was going through his head, thinking that I'm one of these guys complaining about what's going on with the lockout. So it was pretty funny. I ended up getting frostbite from that, because I wouldn't go warm up with them by the fire. But it's just one of those things that people can get carried away pretty fast, especially if you can't put like an actual, a person to the jersey or the argument, whether it's a lockout or just with Tom and fighting and hitting guys. So yeah, it gets pretty intense sometimes.
Right. Alan, thank you very much for joining us today.
Yeah, no problem, man. Thanks for having me, guys. Good luck with this.
Thank you very much. And on the third segment, Karl and I are going to talk. I think we got to get into his fighting history at some point, and we'll talk about what's next for the Capitals. We'll be right back on the All's Caps podcast. Welcome back to the All's Caps podcast. I'm Steve Wino from the Associated Press, joined by Karl Alzner. How about the Alan May fighting stories? That Tortorella stuff is incredible. What was your best fight of your career?
Yeah, I mean, I love letting Alan May loose, just telling some stories, because I could go and go and go. And you just had more stories back then. There's just weirder, crazier things that happen. I wanted to ask him about if they based that, what were they called, the Danbury Trashers team,
on
just
him?
off
right.
what he did. It seems like it, at least from that. But it was really neat to hear, especially the Tortorella stuff, because he's kind of one of those polarizing guys that you hear so many of the negative things about him, but there is clearly a lot of positives. Otherwise, he wouldn't continue to get jobs and be as successful as he is. So that was to me was really neat. I was hoping to hear that, because I played for a coach who kind of got at times got lumped into that kind of category, Joel Bouchard, of being hard on guys, but at the same time he gets a lot out of you. So I think that's kind of neat. So I don't know. I don't really have any great fighting stories like that. I would say that, my first ever fight was in junior, 16 years old. And you don't ever get a chance to fight growing up in hockey. So this was kind of like, you want to get it out of the way and just see what it's like, and not open the floodgates, but just not have that worry of what your first fight is going to be like. So I had just so happened to be out on the bench before one of the games, and we played in the Saddle Dome where the Flames play, and so just looking around at everything, and I look over to my right, and one of their players is out on the bench, and his name's Scott Doucette, who's actually a buddy of mine growing up. Played a lot of spring hockey with him, and played a lot against him. And he comes over and we start chatting. He says to me, we were like, I don't even know, 15 games into the season. He's like, "Have you had a fight yet?" I'm like, "No, not yet. Haven't really had a chance. I don't really know exactly how to go about doing it. I just don't want to jump somebody." He's like, "Yeah, me neither. Do you want to do it tonight? Like maybe just fight each other?" And I'm like, "Oh, it's actually not a bad idea. Yeah, okay, let's do it." So he comes after me in the first period, like 2 shifts into the game. And he's like, "Hey, let's go. I'm like, "Not yet. Like, let's play a little bit. Let's get into the game before we start, getting into a fight." He says, "No, let's go now. Come on." And I'm just like, "Holy smokes, buddy. Like, just settle down. We'll do it. It's a long game." So I go on the bench, come out for my next shift. Sure enough, there he is again. He's like, "Come on, let's go. Come on, let's fight." I'm just like, "Oh, okay, let's just do it. Get it over with, because this is going to drag on all game." So sure enough, we drop the gloves. We are just wild, can barely stand up, throwing punches all over the place. I think I only landed one punch. At least I tagged him right on the nose, a little bit of a bloody nose. And I think he got me once on the top of the head. And I think we fell and got up like 4 times. It was just a joke. Like it would probably be scoring a 2.5 on hockey fights. It was not ideal, but we got to the penalty box after. We were laughing and had a good time with it. And I don't think I fought again for probably 2 years after that. I got it out of my system, and I felt pretty good. A couple little scrums back in that season, but trying to go protect Ryan Getzlaff and Andrew Ladd, as they were our 2 best players, and yeah. I'm just a young guy trying to prove myself, but nothing too major. It was fun. It was fun to get it out of there, but like I had said, you get so much adrenaline going, and sometimes it's hard to really focus in a fight. And you have all these things that you want to do, and it never works out that way. But yeah, it was fairly standard, I like to say.
You fought Steven Stamkos?
Yeah, I did fight Steven Stamkos. That was actually kind of a funny one too. So that was in Montreal, and their D-man kind of gave Kucherov a bit of a suicide pass, a stretch pass from like behind their net all the way up towards the red line. And I came and I didn't try to crush him, but I hit Kucherov pretty good, and he went down. And the next thing you know, I see Stammer coming out of the corner of my eye, and I know Stammer a little bit too. And he goes to drop his gloves and grabs me. So I drop mine and grab him, and I just say to him, like, "Stammer, are you sure you want to do this? Like, you don't have to fight me." And like, I'm not saying that because I'm gonna beat him up or anything, but I'm just like, he's one of the best players in the league. You respect those guys, don't want him to take a chance, breaking anything. And he says, "Man, it was Cooch. You hit Cooch. I got to do it. I got you." I'm just like, "All right, let's go for it." And it was, it was fun. Let's put it that way. It wasn't like it was an intense fight. He was doing what he thought was right, and I was, not trying to be friendly. Like, I'm not a killer or anything, but I was, trying to hit him a little bit without really hitting him a little bit. It was just more, I was letting him get what he needed out of that, and I wanted to continue playing the game, and I didn't want to risk, breaking anything either. So yeah, it was kind of a funny one too. I guess all my fights are a little bit funny. Like, I usually know the person that I'm fighting before I fight them, so I guess I can prepare a little bit more.
Well, no one's ever accused you of being a goon or anything. I mean, that's not something you were known for.
No, not at all. And I mean, it was some guys, I don't know how they would find fights. Like, they'd always find a way to get themselves into something. And I don't think I ever had a single guy that I can really remember come up to me and be like, "Hey, let's go. Let's let's drop them like on the ice in a scrum or whatever. It was more just like we tie each other up and then no one would say anything. It was, so I just don't understand how some guys find it, or maybe it's reputation. Guys know who will drop them and they go after him a little bit more. But yeah, it was just not something that found me that much. But I do have, it's interesting, one of my biggest regrets in hockey came with fighting involved, and that was we played Boston in Boston, and Matt Hendricks fought what was his name, Gregory Campbell, I think. Gregory Campbell. Anyways, fought him, beat him up pretty good. And then after that, Scott Thornton was coming after him. He wanted to fight him. And I remember Hendy saying like, hey, like Soupy wanted to fight. Like that's, it's on him. It's not on me. He says, no, now you have to fight me. If you're going to fight him, you have to fight me. And so I could kind of like hear what was going on. So we were in our zone for a D zone face-off, and we win the puck back to the corner. And the breakout was I was going to get it. I was going to take a couple strides, and I was supposed to rim it up to the far red line to Hendy. And so I get the puck, I turn, take 2 strides, look, and Hendy's not there. He's at the top of the blue line, but he's got Scott Thornton and Adam McQuaid both on either side shaking their gloves at him, wanting to fight. And I'm like, what the heck is going on? Like, it took me a second to, like, I'd never seen this before. 2 guys trying to challenge him. And so I kind of let go of the puck. And then your first instinct is like, what's happening? Your second one is, holy smokes, we got to get in there and help him. And I think I took maybe like 4 or 5 strides, was not close enough at all. But then Hendy faked Scott Thornton and went to Adam McQuaid, and then ended up having to fight him. And McQuaid's like 6'4".
Yeah, he's a big guy.
A good fighter too. And it was, I don't really know that I could have done anything differently, but it's like my biggest regret that I wasn't closer to help him. And just think of that feeling as a person. You got 2 guys that want to beat you up right here. What are you doing? And so it's just one of those weird things. And it's a regret of mine that I wasn't closer, and that teammates weren't closer, that we could help him out, and made him feel like he was, on an island against 2 absolute monsters. So yeah, it was just it's a weird thing. Fighting's a weird thing in hockey. It's kind of what makes our sport unique, but it's still a little bit weird.
Yeah, and Matt Hendricks was never a guy who was scared to, or ever unwilling to drop the gloves.
No, not at all. And he told me that it was when they were in that little showdown. It was Thornton was saying, he's like, come on, let's go, we're going. And then McQuaid was there. He's like, hey, I'm here so you can fight me, so you don't have to fight him. You better come and fight me. You do not want to fight Thorty. And he told me that. I'm like, geez, that's such a weird situation. Like, imagine that, like, for most people to be in something like that, especially ones who haven't fought much. That would just be a strange thing. But yeah, Hendy was a tough customer. You just look at that guy's hands and his body. You could tell he's taken some punishment and given some punishment. So it's kind of neat.
I don't know if you remember this game. My favorite Matt Hendricks fight story was this was in Denver. I guess it must have been 2012, and he fights Cody McLeod.
Yeah.
And I remember I went to talk to Cody McLeod, or the Denver guys did, and said, yeah, me and Matt got beers last night together. We're good buddies. And then I remember somebody from the Caps asking, like, who told you that? I'm like, Cody McLeod did. Like, it's not some problem that these guys had beers. It's a good thing. And then tensions kind of rose during the game, and they fought. It's okay.
Yeah, and that's what it is. Like, it's tough. Like we always say before the game too, if you come from a different team, like if I came back the first time to play Washington, and the guys say no friends out there. Like, it's just one of those things. Like, you can be friendly before the game and warm up, or after the game, it's fine. But once you're out there, nothing's personal. You go after a guy and yell at them and call him whatever you want to call him, fight the guy, even try and hit him. But nothing's personal. You have a job to do, and you're trying to do it as best you can. If that means you have to fight your buddy, or stand up for one of your own teammates, your current teammates, and do something, to hit one of your friends. It's just the way it is. You give them a courtesy. Like, I can't tell you how many times it happens where you go to hit a guy that and you give him a little heads up, like, I'm coming, and you can still finish the check, but you let them know that you're there. And so it's just one of those things. But I remember that exact fight. I remember that moment because I knew that they were close.
That was the same night that Nuvi lost the puck in the empty seats. Just like, there's one of the weirdest goals I've ever seen go in. It just went up, and the seats were like, I guess, maroon or burgundy, and he just lost it. And it must have been a 150-foot goal.
Yeah, well, I will just say that Nuvi was a character, and that would be something that would happen. He had a lot of interesting things happen to him. He was one of the guys, the personalities that I will never forget. So I'm happy I got to play with him.
I like Michael a lot. I love that this has become a fighting episode of All's Caps today. Let's look ahead, though, for the Capitals. And this is a stretch coming up. The Calgary Flames, Ottawa Senators, Detroit Red Wings, Arizona Coyotes, which these don't look like on paper like these teams are any good. How do you, like, you must have had this as a player where you're going into a stretch, you know you're not playing good teams. How do you as a player kind of mentally not like get caught into a trap of we're playing cupcake opponents now?
Well, it happens. Like you do get caught. You try not to, but it's really, really tough to not play down to a team's level. That's what we always would say is before a game. But don't play down to this team. You're better if you guys play your game, you're gonna win. You're gonna control the play, yada yada yada. But even though these teams may not seem like they're at the level of the Caps, they still have a ton of good. Like that's the thing with this league is there's so many good players that it really comes down to coaching and structure, and then how that player wants to perform that night because anyone's going to beat anybody. And I think that it's so hard at the beginning of the year, but you always say like these are the points that in the end they're gonna kick you if you didn't get them. If you don't beat the teams you're supposed to beat. And so it really a lot of it does come down to motivation by the coaching staff, or if somebody in that room can find a way to get guys fired up. Like we have some techniques or whatever. I don't know how much people know about putting money on the board. We can get into that at some point.
We should.
But there's little tactics that guys do to try and get players fired up. Maybe for a game that they wouldn't normally be as ripped on. But there's fans in the stands, so that's something that should hopefully help. I think that Calgary game an afternoon game.
That's an afternoon game. Yes. Yeah,
so the guys will have family there too to watch. The kids will probably be at that one. So there's little things that you just have to pick on to help you get over that hump. But there's just so much to work on right now. So I think that beginning of the season you're usually still fired up for all the games.
Yeah, and I think you're right. And Kuznetsov even brought this up after the Colorado game. Is like you stack the points up now because you don't want to be looking back in April and May thinking, well, man, if we beat the Senators in October, we wouldn't be fighting for the 8th playoff spot right now.
Yeah, no, he's exactly right. You don't want to take anything for granted right now. And Ottawa's kind of one of those teams that I think they're going to be pretty good. Honestly,
they play hard. That's a team that plays hard.
Yeah, they do. And they got so many good young guys. Like I could only imagine that dressing room right now is of that many young guys, probably a bunch of them single too, just kind of living the life, playing in the NHL. And those are the guys that bring the energy to the ring. So I could see them being a pretty good team. So it's just not a time where you can take anyone for granted. Even New Jersey, like the Caps had their way with them last year. And so, they're a different team this year. They got some, I think their blue line is pretty solid right now. So I think it's going to be a different test than what they're used to. So yeah, it's stack the points now so you don't have to worry about it later. Kuzy's right on with that.
Yeah. Do you, when you play teams like that, do you get up for, hey, I'm going to defend a Jack Hughes or did you, or a Brady Tkachuk or a Matthew Tkachuk? Is that a way to focus in and say, look, I know I'm playing, this team may not be all that good on paper, but I know there's guys I want to defend.
Yeah, I would, because a lot of times I was matched up against those guys, so I would have to think about it just a little bit more and maybe watch some clips and really pay close attention to the video and the pre-scouts that we were doing, because you can see how the team's playing, but then those guys usually have a few things that they like to do specifically. Like I remember always playing against Marty St. Louis. I knew that he was going to come down wide and he was always going to try the one move where the player usually come on their off wing and they try and slide. You put your stick out to try and go stick on puck, and that player slides the puck underneath your stick and then quickly tries to roof it on the goalie. He puts his stick over top of yours and then tries to go top shelf. And I just knew that was one of the things he always did. I watched the video, and so he would come down to try it on me, and I always go flat stick or push down hard on his stick so he couldn't get any leverage to move the puck. Those are little things that when you have somebody like that, you try and focus on that and hopefully you can nab that so they don't get it. But at the same time, there's lots of guys that can do it now, so you can only focus so much time on on individuals, and you got to go after the whole team. So yeah, it will happen, especially the guys that really care. They'll watch tons of video about it.
Yeah,
and they'll be better.
You mentioned that, like, a young team, bunch of single guys. You came up with a young Capitals team. Was that fun? Like, I know, like, eventually the expectations kind of built up and you're expected to win and all that. But were the first few years just fun with, like, I remember that Young Guns era with you and Mike Green and eventually John Carlson's there. And, like, what was that like?
It was unbelievable. It was so much fun. Yeah, it was just like, every day you walk to the rink and you're just like, I can't believe I'm here right now. And all the guys are just having a blast. And we were just running and gunning, winning games 6-5 and 5-4. And, you enjoy your time at the rink, and then you go enjoy your time at wherever we were going. I think we went to Capitol Grill, I think, every single night right by the rink, and just having a blast. It was just like, you can't even describe how much fun it was. Like, you go out with the guys and just see what everybody's up to. And a lot of the guys were single too, so no kids. So there was more freedom to just go out, go to football games, baseball games, basketball, like, watch the other sports around town play. So yeah, it was just great. I mean, we talk about those times every now and then and just laugh at how different it is now and how far everybody's come, and responsibility is quite a bit different. So it's it was good. I mean, fond memories. Always look back on that. Even just especially now, like, thinking with Halloween coming up, thinking about the team parties and all the laughs you have. Like, that was one of mine and my wife Mandy's favorite things to do, was plan parties for guys and make sure that everybody was having a good time away from the rink too. So I can only imagine, now that things are opening up a little bit more, what the guys got planned for Halloween and their costume ideas. I'd love to know what you're going to wear for Halloween too. I know if you're going to dress up as a dog as well, and you're a dog lover, and get out there. I know I got my costume set up, so I'm pretty fired up about it. As I know,
is your costume a surprise?
No, not at all. It's I want to be Ted Lasso. I've been growing this mustache and trimming it every day, trying to get it perfect so I can be Ted Lasso from that show. It's one of my favorites I've ever watched. I actually was hoping that I was going to get on some of the NBCSN games in time, because anyone who knows the show, I wanted to dress up as Roy Kent and just grunt and growl at every question that I was asked. But I don't know if I'm going to get on in time. So that's my plan. I don't know. I'm excited to just go out trick or treating with the kids.
Yeah, and far from, like, you were never a Roy Kent type. You're definitely more personality wise like Ted Lasso.
Yeah, I would have to get into character to be Roy Kent, which is why I'm doing Ted Lasso instead, because I think might be able to pull that off a little bit more. But I got to work on my accent, because everything sounds funnier when you have that accent. It's like same thing. Like when I was saying Nuvi was a character, because everything he said just sounded so much funnier in his accent. So I wish that I had something that I could pull out every now and then.
I wasn't going to mention the mustache. I just figured you were doing it for fashion, but now that I know why, that's great.
Yeah, it's big time fashion statement as well. My daughter asked me that this morning. She said, as soon as Halloween's done, can you shave that thing? And I was trying to explain to her about Movember, and I'm like, I might actually have to keep it for another month. And she didn't quite get it, but we'll see. I'm getting urged to get rid of this thing as soon as possible.
This is your daily reminder that Movember is coming up, and you'll be seeing mustaches, good and terrible, all around the NHL.
Exactly. Yeah, no, it's probably my favorite time of year. I love seeing guys enjoy that and embrace it. Some good pictures, and my favorite thing was the Movember interviews that I got to do with the guys. I think that was so much fun. Love to have somebody take over that and get a couple good ones.
I actually remember I interviewed George Paros at a shaving club in DC at one point when he was still playing, and they were doing like the shave off thing. I still have a gift card somewhere that never expires for that place to get a nice shave at some point.
Well, start growing it out, then go in there and cash it in.
That's absolutely right. Karl, this is another great episode of All's Caps. Thank you all for listening, and we'll talk to you next week.
Yeah.